Hello and welcome to episode 55 of Around the Lens, your live weekly visual journalism roundtable show coming at you every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm your host, David J. Murphy, with co-host Zach Roberts. Zach.
Who's just finishing cheese and crackers.
Beautiful timing. Always perfect timing, Zach.
Exactly, yes. If you want to learn more about us, head on over to aroundthelens.com. Follow us on Facebook at AtL. Around AtL podcast, and on Instagram at Around the Lens, and same thing on Twitter as well.
Yep, at Around Lens on Twitter.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to introduce our panelists for this evening. Now, if you tuned in, hoping to catch a glimpse of Anthony, I'm going to mess up his last name, Quintano, sorry. If you were hoping to see him, because I did advertise that he was going to be here tonight, I apologize. He is not on the show tonight. Probably had something more important he had to do. Totally understand. This is a time commitment. Of course, he is a busy man who does a lot of work. So, Anthony, if you're hearing this, hopefully we kind of have you on another time. You did tune in to hear what his thoughts are on visual journalism. I apologize. He is not with us tonight. But we do have an excellent panelist by the name of Daniel Schular. Daniel, why don't you tell the audience who you are?
Hi, I'm Daniel Schular. I'm a freelance photojournalist. I've only been doing that for about 3 years. I've been a commercial photographer for around between 5 and 6. I don't really remember when I started, but I've been published by Xinhua, NBC, and Fox News.
Nice.
I can think of off the top of my head.
Now, you decided you want to go from commercial to photojournalism. What's the draw there? Because, I mean, one makes money and one is not known for making money.
Yeah, no.
One is boring and one is exciting. Well, sometimes exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting if you're in Turkey or Russia, apparently. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But, you had mentioned, but, I mean, do you see, like, are there job prospects out there for you that you plan to, that you're going to be able to move into after you eventually get your degree or path, or are you doing that now?
That's what I'm trying. I'm trying to do that now. I'm just looking into internships. I don't have a journalism degree, so I'm looking into going back to school just to get my foot in the door, because it's been real slow lately trying to get any sort of gig. Just freelancing out by myself.
Commercial business.
I'm
or
just
the freelancing. Okay.
In photojournalism.
Okay.
I'd rather just do that.
So you want that? Yeah, you want that degree the degree is basically your foot in the door for photojournalism, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've shot some stuff, and every once in a while I get published, but it'd be nice to only rely on that for my income.
Yeah,
It's yeah. I mean, I never went to school for photojournalism. Only art photography for 2 years out of my school. So I was never able to get the internships that you get under a photojournalism degree, which is something that I've been seeing career-wise, trying to freelance-wise, I'm fine, relatively fine. But to actually get a full-time job at a newspaper or a daily, it seems that you need to, even entry-level positions, you need to walk in with 2 years experience working for a daily newspaper. So that's as someone who's been looking off and on for full-time work, I know the feeling. So, wow.
Yeah, I saw that post on we're both in that photojournalist classified group, and that newspaper wanted an entry-level position with 2 years experience. All right, guys.
It specifically noted that it was an entry-level position, and it was still looking for. Yeah, no, I mean one of the problems is that we always have this with clients, and it's always tough to kind of have the discussion since it's such a small world that we don't like to call out people. So I think that's one of the problems why things don't change as much, is that we don't go, that's ridiculous, man. You're looking $30,000 a year, which is basically what people are making at McDonald's now, in New York City, at least, because of, $15 an hour wage. And you want 2 years experience, and you want a photojournalism degree. And, oh, by the way, and you want us to have our own equipment.
Yep.
Yeah. So
If it breaks, you're gonna have to replace it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyways, glad to have you on. We have a lot of great stuff to talk about tonight. I thought I would make a few notes or a few comments about where I'm at and what I'm doing, and also promoting the show. If you're watching this on video, either live or after the fact, you might know that my background is different. Well, I'm actually in Houston, Texas right now, visiting my wife's family. So always fun. Taking a little time off. And speaking of time off, this is going to be the last show of the year. That is in this format. We are going to have a special episode next week, but it's mostly just going to be kind of the equivalent of a clip show. You know, how you would expect on your favorite television show. I'm going to go through and find any good clips from the last year and basically highlight them. So if you're watching this and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that one time in episode 23 where that guy said that thing, then let me know. Send me an email, djmphoto@gmail.com or info@aroundthelens.com. Please let me know. I'm looking for stuff. So I want to kind of get the best of the best from the last year and feature that on next week's episode, our special episode. And then starting January 2nd, we will be resuming our our normally scheduled program, regularly scheduled program every week, starting on January 2nd. So you can actually see every single episode we have scheduled up into episode 100 on our Facebook page at the events section. So go ahead and check that out. And if you're interested in being a panelist, you like the show and you want to be a part of it, just let me know, and we'll consider you for that role. All right. Before we go on, though, and we've got a lot of great stuff to talk about, I need to plug the iTunes and Google Play stores. Of course, you can get our show on either of those platforms or your podcatcher of choice. But I got to beg you. I'm begging you here. Please go on those iTunes, go on those platforms, and give us a rating. You can give us a bad rating, give us an average rating, give us a great rating, whatever you want to do. We need feedback from people who listen to the show if we're ever going to go anywhere on the charts. So please throw something, give us some love, write something about the show, good, bad, or indifferent. I would love to get some sort of feedback on what people think of this show, because you know, when you're doing something like this and it's a passion project that we do for free, that's really the payment. You know, just to know what people think of the show, know we're going in the right direction, know that people are getting something out of it. So go ahead and leave us some reviews on iTunes. That's the best thing you can do for us. All right. So let's go on with the show. Now, we did have, of course, if you've seen the Instagram post, if you've seen any of the promotional material I put out about the show on Friday or the weekend prior, you saw what our topics are. But we're going to include a topic because this just erupted literally today in Russia. Was it in Russia or was it, I believe, Turkey. Was it in Turkey or Russia?
It's Turkey.
Okay, it was the Russian ambassador to
Yes.
Turkey, right? Okay, so excuse me if I'm, again, this just happened today in terms I learned about it. So again, the detail is mistaken. I apologize. I'm going to actually bring up the picture here we're going to be talking about. We're going to do a little screen sharing action to make that more interesting, especially if you are watching this. You can check this out. All right, so this picture right here that was featured by the AP. I'm going to make it full screen. It features a unnamed assassin. I don't know if they figured out who he is yet, who has just shot the Russia's ambassador to Turkey at a photo gallery, it looks like. And when I saw this picture initially, I thought it was some sort of like fake picture. I thought it was like a wax figure, or it was like a stage shot, or like a demonstration or something like that. Especially it is in a gallery, so it could be like one of these like installation pieces, because it's just so perfect. It's so perfectly formed and fitted and molded and crafted as a photograph that I didn't believe at first that this was a real photograph. But this is real. This is a very strong, powerful photograph. I mentioned when I commented on it. This is definitely up there for photograph of the year, if not more so. But just definitely one of the prime examples of photojournalism in our industry. Zach, what do you think of this?
It's I mean it as I wrote on Around the Lens. I mean, this is one of the really this is kind of this photo, and also a stringer, which actually I didn't know was a stringer. Let me see if I can actually switch over to my screen and not get a.
We did this before the show and it worked.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can do this during the show.
Is that working?
There we go.
Yeah. So photo here by a stringer. photojournalist. It was taken at the incident happened, the attack or shooting or whatever, however they're officially calling it, happened at a photo show at a gallery. The Russian ambassador to Turkey was assassinated, shot several times, and it was interesting enough at a photo gallery called called Russia as Seen by Turks. And that's according to BBC, at least that was the title of it. These photos are up at, they have a bunch of more photos up at BuzzFeed right now. You can see this one's by the AP photographer, Burhan. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name. And that's the photo. If you can see it, that was up on the Twitter. These were shared via AP's Twitter. And as far as I can tell, that they were out almost immediately. And you can see, I mean, this is how close people were. If you can see the people behind here hiding. I also we noted off camera too that if you watch the video of it, and I won't play the video of it, but on this show, but you can go out and look for it if you want. But the video, you can also see that the videographer that was running the camera, I believe at least would be this camera here, was able to actually zoomed out because he had a close shot of just of the ambassador, basically about this close, and then he was able to quickly zoom out to get the kind of the full scene of what was going on. Everything about this incident, obviously, you know, we're talking here about photojournalism. We're not talking about the incident itself. We're not talking about it as, you know, as kind of on a human level. We're analyzing it. Obviously, this is happening really, really quickly. So excuse me if anything comes off as like brat, you know, like just heartless or something. This speaks to why photojournalism is so important. You had professionals there, a stringer on one hand, a full-time photojournalist for AP on the other hand, and then a professional videographer, and documented the scene. There's so far, these are the only images that I've seen. I haven't seen any social media images, you know, people with their cell phones or anything like that. And that since these went to wire services, that immediately and really big name wire services, that we can kind of in the era of fake news, you know, and immediate conspiracy theories about what happens, is that this is why photojournalism is more important, and professional photojournalism is more important than ever. And I don't know how else that these images can possibly portray any better.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is the prime example of what you expect in terms of being a professional and being composed and ready to respond when you have that once in a million lifetime. You know, you talk about the once in a lifetime lucky shot, you know, this is it. This is like right place, right time, and also being skilled and able to control your equipment and your disposition, your temperament to be able to convey and capture this image. What do you think about this, Daniel? I mean, you're studying this or looking to study this right now. What are your thoughts on this picture?
I was actually showing
pictures of this whole event.
Showing Zach earlier, someone had put the golden ratio on top of the vertical picture from AP, and it lines up perfect. I don't know if they cropped it or not, but like that's what really I think drew people into that. I mean, it's breaking news, but it's I don't want to say aesthetically pleasing, but it falls in line with that, you know, classical, you know.
It's definitely one of the most aesthetically pleasing shots of murder I've seen in a while.
Well, it's also very interesting because what it manages to do is it manages to capture it in a news sense without having to usually. BuzzFeed made the choice to censor the photos, not censor them, but you have to click on to blur them out. But this is something that also we always make these decisions in breaking news on whether the photos are fit to be shown because I mean, on social media, you have no choice of seeing this. You scroll through and they're just there for the most part. I mean, Twitter I know has like a censor button where they can they can be labeled as such. I haven't seen it that often on Facebook. I have seen it, but I don't know how. At least I could make that decision to do that. But it shows kind of everything about the story that you need to know without being, I guess, usually the rules are showing faces of dead bodies, blood, things along those lines, and it doesn't do any of that.
Right. No, I mean, I think it's definitely interesting. And if I were there, I would have printed the photograph and put it up on the wall, like the next day.
But
I do wonder though, if your photograph is the one featured in the background behind him, what do you think of that?
Yeah.
Like, oh man, my photo is associated with this photograph.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna.
Your photo was back there, Zach. Any thoughts?
I mean, I don't know if I'd be thinking about that in this incident. I mean, the photo show was at least my understanding was meant to, obviously Russia and Turkey have a long history of bad relations, and the idea was to kind of bring the two nations together, which is something that kind of both presidents, both prime minister and president, had been trying to bring together, through peace talks and kind of and through the fight of Syria, which again, this is what this man was shot the ambassador over. At least that's what he yelled, was mentioning Aleppo and Syria, and so I don't know. It's such a tough feeling to know that you'd have a photo exhibited there, or you'd have that's part of the story, because I would assume a lot of the photographers were present for this, and I mean, we had a moment at least where we thought that these two countries were going to start coming together for good or worse on international relations level. You can have that, you can have the discussion as well, but my understanding is that already Russia has taken it, especially since this is a Turkish police officer, has taken it in not a good way towards the nation of Turkey, which whether or not a nation, whether a single person can speak for their entire nation, I mean, that's always the problem with, well, not always the problem with terrorism, but it's one of the many problems with terrorism.
So the assassin was a Turkish police officer? Is that what this
Yes, yeah, because I mean, one thing that people noted in the photo immediately was, because immediately the conspiracy people jump around and go, oh, obviously it's a fixed, it's a false flag is always the story, or something, that these things are set up, is that if you notice, the gunman has trigger discipline. His finger is actually off the trigger kind of in train. And supposedly the shots and kind of everything that I've been hearing, I've been watching BBC, which, by the way, if we're going to talk about media, do not over this day. I would not recommended. I think I tweeted something about this. Do not watch American media right now. They have no idea what they're talking about for the most part, and they're far beyond their depth on for MSNBC and CNN on these two stories, because of course they're only talking about Berlin at the moment, and because they have video of it, but. The trigger discipline is a police officer. I believe he's either been detained or shot. I forget.
I believe he was killed.
He was shot. He was killed already. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. They took him out. Yeah. I mean, it's a really sad event. I mean, obviously a person lost their life today, but we do have this photographic evidence, and I don't know if anybody's been to the museum in DC, but I would be very surprised if a photograph like this didn't end up in there. They have so many amazing photographs from throughout history. So I think this will definitely be on the wall over there. But definitely got to give kudos to the people who were there at the time, able to capture this. I would love to have them on the show at some point in the future and talk about that experience in person. Any last thoughts, Daniel?
The only thing I can think of is earlier, after I shared it, I put a comment on my Facebook about this is insane, someone give this guy a Pulitzer, and then a friend of mine kind of say, like, not just about me but about other people were saying something similar about how it's kind of insensitive that as journalists that was the first thing we thought of was oh, this is like an awards-worthy photograph, and like I felt kind of bad, but yeah, sometimes you just don't think of, like in this setting, like it's fine to talk about stuff like that because that's what we're here to talk about. But yeah, like it was my rush to put something on social media, and I've kind of regretted it. But
yeah, I think I forget what we were talking about last episode, but I kind of I always try to do a caveat, I try to mention that to anybody outside of the field, because if you're a photojournalist, I mean, you know, if God forbid, the few times that, like the amount of times the groups of us were standing around at Ferguson or at any of these scenes where, you know, whether a village was on fire or whether somebody had gotten shot or whatever, we have to witness some of the worst parts of society, and thus we end up worst parts of society and worst things that happen in society, and we have to document it. We don't have to just, unlike print journalists who don't even necessarily have to physically be there, we have to physically be there to cover it. And we end up getting, the only way that we often deal with these things and news in general is we end up having a very dark sense of humor. And we joke about things, whether they be, oh, I really hope it ends up being a category 4 hurricane versus a 1, because we know that a tropical storm won't actually be a news story, but a hurricane will be, and things like that happen. We really, outside of our own circle of friends, to take a Phil Oakes phrase, it sounds really bad. And even print journalists I've had that like come into, photographic circle, they're like, kind of stand back and when sometimes we make jokes or cracks about it. And again, I apologize to anyone listening that is offended by the way that we talk about things, the way that we're analyzing this stuff really early on. But again, it is part of media criticism, and we have to kind of discuss these things while they're still topical. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to think about, because when, you talk about the quality of the image first before you actually talk about the content of the image in this case. And I think that's because of a couple things. One, obviously in this country, we're so desensitized to violence in the media. We see it in movies, we see it in TV shows, we see it everywhere in every facet. It's completely the norm. Obviously we can't, sex and nudity and stuff is not allowed, whatnot, but violence, you can show that all day, every day, and a million different venues. It's not hard to see. So to see an image of violence that is relatively benign in all respects, I mean, if you look at it, it's not gory, it's not gruesome, there's no blood, it's just there's a body on the ground aimed with a gun. And I could see this as a movie poster, I could see this in a million different mediums that are perfectly acceptable. So it's easy to immediately turn off the tragic nature of the event and simply look at it as a beautiful photograph. And if probably it wasn't as beautiful a photograph, then there might be more sort of reaction to what's going on. But again, first initial reaction to this photograph was a beautiful photograph, and I thought, as tragic as it is. So interesting to examine. But we'll probably talk about this again more in the future. Like I said, if we can get people who are involved in this on the show, we'll talk to them and ask them about their experience. But definitely go check that out. Go to aroundthelens.com. Zach wrote a great story about it, talking more in detail about it. But let's go ahead and move on to our next topic, which we did advertise this, so we're going to talk about the Getty $1 billion lawsuit was recently essentially thrown out of court. The judge ruled essentially in Getty's favor that the images that were released by the photographer were essentially public domain, and they had the right to do what they did with it. Although, of course, they did not have the right to charge the photographer for, her own image, but they did have the right to use what images were essentially put into the public domain. What do you guys think of this? What do you think of this ruling? Do you think it's a good or bad, or are you indifferent to it?
It's kind of hard to tell because they settled out of court, so we'll never really know who got paid what.
Well, we do know that she didn't get paid the $1 billion she had asked.
Yeah.
We do know that. So I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure she got some, but it was probably, you know, nowhere near the asking price.
Yeah. It's an interesting difference how, again, photos seem to be, and obviously it's a dramatic difference between, say, this and Napster, you know, but lawsuit after lawsuit proving that music is beyond humanly copyrighted. I mean, like, you can own the music, you can't share it though. You can't do anything to it. You can't move it. You can't, you know, like, I mean, I believe it's still probably illegal for me to transfer CDs onto my computer and you know, and put them onto more than one computer after, you know, after, was it Metallica, right? Lawsuit with Napster. But photos, for some reason, just, you know, they have no protection under law, it seems, that, you know, whether it be the larger corporation or whether it be the general public. You know, as we talked about last week, you know, talked about how, you know, you don't need to, you know, no one has ever lost their job for sharing, no journalist has ever lost their job for sharing a photo and not crediting the photographer. You know, worst case scenario, they get like you know, they get hit with a small claims court, you know, from the photographer. But, you know, steal some print, try and do that. Put 5 seconds of a Metallica song into a news story. Try putting that up on YouTube for more than 25 minutes and see that it's not taken down. You know, so photos and stuff like that. Try getting your photos taken down if CNN uses it and puts it up on YouTube. Go ahead, try that.
Okay, I'll do that right now. Hey, you two conversate, talk for a second. I gotta go get my battery charger.
Okay.
Do it live. Do it live.
Doing it live. Oh, doing it live. Yeah, Daniel. I mean, have you?
Yeah.
I mean, what's because I mean, this isn't just, you know, obviously I went off on a small tangent there about, you know, the big corporations doing whatever, which is what I tend to do. But I mean, this is, you know, or, you know, we're used to, you know, small people stealing photos, putting them up on Twitter, doing whatever, using them on their blog. But I mean, this is Getty. You know, we're probably, yeah. I'm sure that they've sold, if you've ever uploaded to any wires or anything like that, Getty has sold a bunch of my photos, you know, for a pathetic amount of money. Here. But, you know, so I mean, like, what, you know, how does photography go forward from here? I'm gonna put it on you. Where do we go?
Idea. I have a hard time getting even like activist blogs to take my pictures down whenever they steal them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't know what to do. Like, lawyer up, and hopefully I don't lose all my money.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like, you know, this is where, you know, we have two kind of amazing stories that on completely flip side. The first story we talked about today is like beyond human comprehension, the most important, like probably this year. I can't think of another story that proves the importance of photojournalism than what just happened in Turkey. And the photos that came out of that and the video that came out of that. And then we talk about Getty, the #1 photojournalism provider. You know, I mean, basically, I can't think of anybody really bigger. And yeah, no, they can just do whatever they want with public images and charge people. And, you know, hopefully she got cashed out a little bit, at least on it, you know, but
really fascinating stuff, guys. You know. Really fascinating. Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
I can't wait to listen to that later. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was done with my rant. I was just setting up Daniel to figure out how we solve this problem.
Daniel,
it's up to you, man.
Problems now.
Well, I'll just go into law school instead.
What's your solution, buddy?
Probably be better to go to law school. I mean, I don't know how many people, if you had, you know, Daniel Show Esquire photography, how many people would steal your photos then if you could just be like, oh no, here's a letter from my law office right now, little blog in Utah. I'm gonna have your ISP take down your website if you don't remove that photo, like that. So
that would be nice.
They should teach that in photojournalism school. They should teach you how to use the camera and also get a minor in law so you can actually litigate on your behalf.
I mean, I believe it's more important now. I mean, that's the one thing that always frustrated me with, you know, when I went to film school, and I went to photography, like art photography school. And the one thing that I never learned how to do was fill out grant paperwork, how to protect my, copyrights, how to protect my images. And obviously that'd be, weird, but I don't believe that there was a course offered ever. At least I don't ever remember seeing it. And to me, I knew how to make, I could learn how to make, I had 4 different classes every semester telling me how to learn, how to take photos, how to do all these things, and never single one how to survive on doing that, basically. And that's to me a big problem in art and in journalism school. I mean, so.
I don't think there's even like a course on budgeting for yourself, or like developing how do you charge. If you're going to work as a freelancer, how do you charge people? What's the appropriate rate and whatnot? How do you live? It's this job. How are you living as this job, Daniel? You're a freelancer.
Barely. Yeah. When I went to art school for photography. Yeah. Actually, who taught studio classes, and he was the only teacher who set off a week in each semester, and he would be like, "This is business week. We're going to talk about this because nobody else here will talk to you about this. Like, there's people who've been doing this for decades, and they don't want to talk about it." So he's like, so for at least 2 weeks a year, we actually got like a crash course in business and how to at least try to make money at what we were doing. I still wish there was a standalone class for that, because it still wasn't enough, but yeah, maybe it's something that people should try to, advocate. Maybe like we get the MPPA to advocate in journalism schools to start teaching something like that.
It's not just journalism schools. I think it's like all schools, really. Yeah. I mean, starting in high school, there's very little to no real education on finance and how to manage your finances and how to invest money and a number of different things. I remember, I think it was senior year, we spent a portion of a semester doing some finance stuff where we played the stock market, paper stock market and stuff. I think that was it for the entire education history that I can remember, at least in high school. And honestly, everything else with regard to finances, stocks, how to do all that, I've had to teach myself. So
I made like $100,000 in a semester. Our class, I think it was home ec or something like that in 10th grade. I think they gave us $1,000. They gave me like $2,500 or something like that. And in the semester, I went all in on QVC because my family, my grandmother and my aunt were really big. They're big QVC people. They still are. And in that semester, QVC was bought by Viacom, and then Viacom shares doubled and split. So my $2,500 went to $5,000 and then went to $10,000 like within 2 weeks, and then like just went up. So I was like, oh, I'm fine. But no, I still, you realize like I had to go on, thank God for the internet right now, because I would have no idea how to like make an invoice, even things like that, just even the, like the fact that, how long you should expect to, at least how long should you expect to wait to get an invoice, to get money for your work. I don't think anyone ever told me, and no one has ever told me, oh, by the way, unlike, your job working at McDonald's or Target or your 9-to-5 job where you get a paycheck at the end of the week, and if that doesn't come, that's a really big problem. Like the company's going out of business, like you should freak out. But you can do work and then invoice someone and they just never get back to you. Like it's been 6 months it's been 8 months since I invoiced RT or Rupley, and they still haven't gotten back to me. And that company's doing well. It's not like Al Jazeera America like suddenly dissolved, over a period of 2 weeks or something like that, and they just don't have the money or something changed. Like that company still exists, and
right.
And that's something I don't think. I don't know. I haven't gone to photojournalism school, so I don't know. Maybe they are telling people this, but it's like everybody has to kind of learn that in the real world experience, And now the fact that like For your viewers at home, you should watch the video today.
Tons of excitement on the video, let me tell you.
I know very few freelancers that I know of went to photojournalism school and ever got any sort of like professional training. So most of the time it's like, again, in those photojournalism packs when there's like 5 or 6 people kind of sitting around in a subway at 2 o'clock in the morning waiting for something to go down. That's when you start learning things. Like that's the only kind of education that most people I know have, you know?
I love how
I
far
learned how
we've
to manage my money on
diverged.
Reddit.
Yeah.
What was that, Daniel?
So I learned how to manage my money off of Reddit. So
There you go. Hey, Reddit's a great forum. You know, I've learned most of my life lessons from Reddit.
Yep.
You know, how to be a better person, how to diet, exercise.
What is it?
Probably.
If your wife cheats on you, you're supposed to what? Get a gym membership.
Lawyer up.
Lawyer up there.
Join the gym, I believe, are the 3 things you're supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Or as
Like,
many people
literally,
like to say, no, hit the lawyer, join Facebook, something, quit the gym. I don't know.
Yeah.
I always get those confused.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. We're talking about encryption in camera gear. So this a group of photographers and creatives basically said that they told Nikon, they told all the manufacturers in an open letter that they want encryption enabled, or a capability to encrypt the content from a camera directly as it to a memory card, so that when they're out shooting something that's perhaps of a controversial nature, or if they're traveling between countries, that imagery, that content is protected. No one can come in and delete it and whatnot. And it's gotten some mixed response, I think, at least from people who have read the story and are kind of paying attention to it with regard to the feasibility of something like that, and just the overall, would that even make sense? So, panelists, what do you think about this? Is that something you would be interested in? Do you think this is something camera manufacturers will ever do? Daniel?
I wouldn't use it right now, but eventually I hope that I could. I'd love to go to other countries and do any sort of investigative journalism projects. And coming back, even we saw the guy like last month going over the Canadian border to come to Standing Rock. Got denied. They searched all of his stuff.
Yep.
It's one more layer that's going to keep you from them taking something from you.
Absolutely.
So I support it. I think it's a good idea.
Zach?
It's interesting because I would have sent this over to SanDisk and Lexar, not over to the camera manufacturers, because then it becomes on the where. I mean, I like the premise. As somebody who's had my files of my deleted from during a commercial shoot, actually, but that's a long story I can't talk about. I think I have in the past, actually, on the show, but I can't talk about it.
I'll find that and I'll feature it in next week's special edition episode.
At this point, but I have had, it's like, when I was arrested at Occupy Wall Street, my cameras were obviously and understandably taken away from me, but they were nothing was missing from them. There was stories about how the NYPD have deleted photos from things. That's something that I would love to have, is just, have to enter some password first or something like that to delete files. The practicality of these things always worry me, because like if anyone's actually tried to do like 2-step encryption and like how it works sometimes, how it's like, I don't know, I always find it a huge pain in the butt to do. But for certain stories, I use different email addresses that are more secure. But I would love to have that on my memory cards, so that, especially if they're transferred onto the computer, then they have some level. I don't know. I just feel like that this is more of a media product and less of a camera thing, because then you're starting to deal with Nikon's encryption versus Canon's encryption. I don't see Canon and Nikon getting together and like doing something across the board. I feel like the SDXC, like like memory card makers, they all have to get together. And also, I don't know. I barely know anybody who uses anything other than SanDisk. So if SanDisk did it, I'd be, okay. And they work, Lexar and SanDisk both do memory card recovery services. So I don't know. It's one of those, I feel, I agree with it. I think it's necessary even in America, possibly even especially in America now, because the idea that anyone can delete it on my cards. I mean, we have it on our phones. They had to hire a hacker to get the San Bernardino shooter. I mean, because Apple refused to do it. It seems weird that, maybe if Apple does it, but then Nikon and Canon make sense for it. But there's not the same sort of like operating system in a camera that there is in a phone. But, I don't know. I like the premise. I'm happy for it. I support it. I'd sign the letter.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I think it's a good idea. Obviously, if that's something people want, and it's feasible to do, I think they should do what they can to make it a reality. With regard to how feasible it is, though, that was the topic sort of discussed, because you're talking about, again, two separate entities, whereas like with your phone, it's all enclosed. The memory is built into the phone. Now, I do have to look into, like my phone, for instance, since I have a memory card that I can stick into it. Can I encrypt that memory card via the phone? If that's the case, then there's absolutely no reason why camera manufacturers can't do the similar thing where they're encrypting the actual content as it is transferred to the memory card. And then if someone takes the memory card out and tries to read that memory card, they cannot, because it's either password protected or the files on it are encrypted. Again, I'll have to double check my own phone to see if that's possible. But if it is, then there's no excuse that the camera manufacturers have to step up and make this an option for people to use. But of course, this is a option that would only be exercised by the most dedicated of dedicated photojournalists who are out there, documenting things where it might be something to where they could potentially have their content taken away. So it's not a hugely, you're not going to have Joe on the street with his, Nikon D700 or whatever, who cares about or wants to use an encryption feature. It's just going to be another one of those lists of features, 90% of which most people don't even probably touch on their DSLR. That is, again, and then does the manufacturers have any incentive to create this? I don't think so. But like you were saying, who does this? Does Canon do it? Does Nikon do it? Does SanDisk do it? It has to be a universal standard. A third-party agency or there has to create a conglomerate to essentially say this is the standard, implement it. So I think if there is some enterprising, perhaps third-party group that wants to do this, essentially give it to the manufacturers, then it could be potentially implemented. But until then, I don't see any movement forward on this. But let me ask you this. So, I mean, even if the content is encrypted on the memory card through the phone, through the camera, what's up somebody from just being like, oh, okay, pop out the memory card, destroy it? I mean, that's, I don't see where, like...
I think that most people who are looking into something like this already have a backup plan for that. Depending on what country you go to, if you have an internet connection, up, especially sensitive material that could compromise your sources or anything like that. And you've got two-step authentication on wherever you're hosting your information at. So it might, people already have a way around it, sort of, in certain circumstances. Like you can wipe a cell phone before you have to go through a border. Same thing with your cards. But if you don't have an internet connection to back that up, then that's where this would come in handy.
Right.
So this is really only targeting a very small group of people who are already doing something similar to it already, I would think.
Mm-hmm. The main usefulness that I would see for it as somebody occasionally does undercover stuff and potentially gets caught is for them to see what you have. And what you captured. So if you're taking photos of people, because one of the things you do in interviews, obviously, you know, a lot of times you'll just blur a person's face or you'll black them out in post-production. But a lot of times you need that person's face on camera for your editors for whatever other purpose. It's at least helpful to provide that image. So that's why, like, if you do like the silhouette interviews, or, you know, you think those behind the scenes, you know, source interviews, that would be useful. And the fact that they'd have to destroy the media to do it. I'd rather have that decision than them get to see what's on there, because I find that if you're in that scenario, I would rather have them not see and end up losing the footage than getting, you know, not only losing the footage, because if they can see it, they're going to end up deleting it or destroying the memory cards anyway. So having that kind of like lockdown where they can't see it, there has to be a password entered or whatever has to happen. That'd be nice. I did actually look, because I did remember this. SanDisk, Matsushita, and Toshiba agreed they already do have the secure digital music initiative already, or the initiative already exists between a lot of the large manufacturers to provide a media that looks, you know, that has a certain size and shape of everything and works on across the board. So that agreement already works between them. So it would just be one more thing on top of it. I'm sure Nikon and Canon have obviously agreements to do whatever. But again, going back, I feel like the memory card scenario would be the best way, especially considering if you think flash drives already have that.
Right.
Like, you know, you can buy flash drives that are protected, even though one of the comments on Petapixel was somebody saying, I just lost 4 gigs worth of data because after 3 tries, it deleted it. That'd be terrifying. As a person who's really, really bad with remembering passwords, you know, there's certain accounts where I just go, okay, I have to go and click an email to get a new password every time I log in, if I log in every 6 months or whatever. So that's something that would be problematic, but I feel like that would be then something that I would go tell somebody, like, oh, by the way, tell my editor that, oh, by the way, my password is, you know, 1689 or something like that, you know, to log in. So at least I have somebody else back.
Let me write that down. What was that? 168.
I specifically had to pause in my head to say, wait, what's not my password? What's not my PIN number? It'd be like 1689. Yeah, that's nothing like it.
So it's not 1689. That means it could be 257.
Yes, there's 900 million and 99.999 other options. Yeah, okay. I whittled it down.
It's the internet, Zach. Give them a weekend. They'll figure it out.
Oh, God.
I just was checking on my own personal phone, by the way, and you can encrypt your SD card in the phone. So there you go, camera manufacturers. The phone has been dropped. Get on it. Make it happen. No excuses now.
Yep.
All right. Well, by the way, I did reach out to Seth Harold, one of the past. And he gave me some sort of insight because he is actually listed as a signatory on this letter. So I will be putting together a story about this, you know, compiling his response. So if you're interested in knowing more about sort of the behind the scenes, why someone would sign a letter, why someone did sign the letter, what they think of this, then definitely go check out Around the Lens. We'll have a story up here probably in the next day or so. So go check that out from the person who actually wrote about it. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our last subject this evening. We're talking about, what are we talking about? We're talking about gear, as always. We're talking about the transition here from full-frame DSLR, you know, your Nikon, Canon D4, D5, Mark IV, Mark III, etc., to more of the mirrorless camera bodies. So your Sony A7S, your Panasonic GH4, your Fuji X, your mirrorless systems. And I thought this was a fascinating piece created by for the Petapixel. Very interesting to kind of see this one photographer's experience who, since 1999, he had been using Nikon DSLRs to, produce work. And now he was in a situation where he had to be more discreet and carry around a smaller camera. So he chose to go with the X Pro 1 from Fuji, a mirrorless system with essentially 2 lenses. Nothing too fancy here, but he was able to do his job, talked about how he did his job, and essentially got the images he needed with this system. So what do you guys think about this? Would you move to a mirrorless system? Have you thought about it for sort of straight photojournalism, or are you basically diehard dedicated DSLR, full frame, got to use that mirror? Daniel, what do you use?
I use a 5D Mark III.
All right, beautiful camera, love it. I don't have it myself. I have the 5D Mark II. I also love it. I also haven't picked up the camera since I bought my GH4, a mirrorless, about 2 years ago. It's collecting dust. I'm going to use it this week while I'm on vacation, but I haven't obviously used it, professionally for a while. So, what would you say? Would you use a mirrorless? Would you give up the 5D Mark III for a mirrorless system?
I don't know if I'd give it up, but I would definitely like to have one as a backup. Or as I was saying before we started about, I've applied to get into 7 different Trump events now, and I've been denied every one. Even whenever I have someone there, like at the RNC, whatever I was going to do something for the Mudflaps, not as a freelancer, as someone is actually doing something, I still get denied. So walking in there with a compact mirrorless camera, I could go in as someone in the crowd and maybe get better pictures than everyone who's stuck in the press pin. That would be great because he's the only person I haven't taken a picture of during this campaign. Besides that, yeah. Besides that, I carry around this 5D with a battery grip with 2 batteries because I'm lazy and I don't like charging stuff, so I can shoot on this camera for like 3 straight days. And I'm sure that just about even a mirrorless, if they make a grip for it, it would weigh a third of what I carry around now.
Yeah.
And that would be pretty nice, especially
for my. I was just saying, I have a grip for my GH4, and it's still a super duper lightweight package.
Yeah, it's on days when you're walking like 12, 15 miles with a protest, like,
yeah,
the pounds add up and all the gear you're carrying. So,
yeah. Oh my gosh, when I switched to GH4, it was beautiful because my camera kit was like this big, a huge backpack when I had the 5D Mark II kit, and it was down to basically like a man purse with the mirrorless system. It's such a beautiful thing what they can do with small package. How about you, Zach? Are you gonna switch to mirrorless anytime soon, or you're not?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm I was looking at the Sonys for a while, the full frame Sonys, because especially with the low light that they have. I'm reading more, at least with those, that basically it ends up being a lot of the same weight because what you lose in the camera body, you end up gaining in the lenses, which that was kind of an argument that at least was going on in Petapixel back and forth. But I would definitely, I've been looking at getting some sort of body like one of the Fujis. Right now, it's more important for me to get another full frame Nikon body because I've got one that I think is slowly on its way out after probably like 300,000 images or something. But I definitely would like, if I had the money, I would definitely have both kits. I like my Nikons way too much. I like the lenses, and I know you can get adapters and everything like that. But certainly for certain shoots, I mean, like I would really love for like family gatherings and stuff more casual to not be like, oh, let me pull out my Nikons, like, in the big lenses and everything like that, and just have something for, to be able to go for a walk in the park without, choosing, well, do I carry my cell phone and nothing else, or carrying a Nikon with a 17-35 or or a 20, whatever else I have. And so, yeah, I mean, eventually when it comes to loss, but getting rid of it completely, yeah, I can't, unless I moved over to a Sony system completely and then had, like a smaller Sony or something like that, I could see it maybe, but no time soon can I get rid of it. Just too much. There's another problem, which is also starting a little bit of discussion in there, is that the lenses aren't quite there yet. And obviously, I guess since Sigma is starting to make some lenses for it, it'll probably solve some of the problems. But I mean, I really like being able to walk into any camera store anywhere, you know, at least that they exist, and get the gear that I need for it. That I know with Nikon or even Canon, if I, God forbid, ever switched, I would be able to get as well. So, you know.
Yeah, another thing I like about it is it's discreet, like a big full frame camera with a grip and a big lens. Like you're automatically noticed in shooting something that's small, looks like a point and shoot, a little bigger than a point and shoot. Most people won't know the difference. Just because, like being in like whenever things get bad and in some situations, like it's nice to like no one's gonna notice you taking pictures.
Yeah, it's funny, like, you know, if you're a wedding photographer, you want like the biggest piece of gear and equipment you can wrap around your neck just because it makes you look that much more professional. But yeah, when you're in certain situations, and that's what you know, the photographer mentioned in the article, is that he got this camera, he had to use this camera system because he had to look discreet. He had to look like a tourist essentially, and not, you know, show off to the people who were looking at his equipment. And you know, because he was shooting some stuff that was, you know, not you know, exactly the most ethical stuff that was going on. So he had to kind of, you know, sneak that in there. And that's one of the things, again, I love about the camera system. It's very discreet. It's very small. You can throw lenses on there that are, you know, I think a third the size of, you know, their sort of full frame counterparts, and get, again, excuse me, sorry for the dog, the same quality, or at least equivalent quality, I would say. So that's the dog in the house. Woo, vacation, going live. All right. So you know, what about the mirrorless system themselves? I mean, are you attracted to mirrorless systems? Have you thought about, you know, going towards that direction? Would you upgrade to them, or are you gonna pretty much say DSLR?
I'll probably just say DSLR because I don't really want to spend the money to buy a new system. I've used like the Fuji X100S and the GH4, and I messed around a little bit with the Sony A7S, all other people's cameras that I was just trying out, and I like them all, but I couldn't justify the cost of buying new lenses, or even buying like the system and getting like a Metabones adapter. It's just a lot of money.
Yeah, it's that's been what my biggest drawback for switching over, because I'm actually finally seeing a physical therapist for my back and my shoulder, my shooting arm, and my wrist, which is actually kind of a problem too. So it's like basically I need a full replacement, which would be super nice to have like gear that weighs a little bit less, you know. And I was looking at the Sonys, especially considering the low light has been, you know, basically the Sony's their top full frame. I forget whether it's the Sony. I hate their numbering system.
The A7S too.
Oh, 2R or whatever it is too. They added another letter. So it's like, but I suppose Nikon's isn't really all that better. It's like, well, the D500 is actually more than it's a D400, but the D400 never existed. So the D300, but it's completely different. But I have a D600. I can literally buy a new one refurbed from Nikon for $1,149. They have a sale right now. And the Sony, the top one, still I've been looking, is still, I've never seen them lower than 2,300. So basically they're like on par with like a D4 in their like kind of price levels. I know you can get like a D4 for like freaking 2,800 or 3,000 now. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to buy another thing, I'm going to keep my Nikon glass, which I like, and just say screw it and go to a D4, which obviously is going in the wrong direction weight wise and everything, but still, you know, that's a whole different system, and that's like basically just a completely different camera from even my D600s, which obviously is the same body, but you know, it's professional on a different level, which the Sonys just like aren't. But you know, if the price drops and you know, I can possibly try it out, I definitely would consider it. You know, but until Sony Sony starts dropping their prices or starts releasing, you know, some more full frame cameras, so that they have kind of at least a little bit of different price difference, I would consider it.
Yeah, I'm a bashed full frame, or I'm sorry, I'm a bashed micro mirrorless 4/3 supporter. As I mentioned many times on the show, I will be getting the GH5 when that eventually comes out, and I will probably be selling all my full frame kit to include my 5D Mark II and all the lenses. I just, you know, that's the future. That's where things are going, and you know, it's only going to get better in the mirrorless side, in my opinion. But I'm sorry, Daniel, go ahead.
I was going to say that if I was going to use it as a backup, which would probably be what I would like, that'd be the best scenario for me. Yeah. I probably wouldn't get a full frame. I would probably get a crop sensor with just a couple lenses, just to, you know, just to carry around for situations where I needed something smaller. Because right now, like I use a Rebel as my backup right now, so it'd be like I could easily get that out of a mirrorless and get better performance than what I'm doing now.
Oh yeah. Most certainly, yeah. I mean,
and it would be a lot cheaper.
I mean, the reason too that I even, you know, I know David can't stop talking about the video from the Panasonics. I strongly disagree, but the Sony's video is just so much better than what I've seen from even Canon or Nikon. So if I was going to go somewhere, it would be that for video, because Nikon has. And I think Canon, I don't know what the time limitation is, but the idiotic time limitation on for video, like I think Nikon, even on my D600, is still 24 minutes. I think they're up to like 30 on some of the other cameras, but I just can't. You know,
no time limit on GH4.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. And you look like a child shooting a point and shoot. Yep. And then you have 18,000. You have this little tiny camera, and if you want to make it a functional video thing, you have a big thing sticking out the front, and then you have another attachment so you can actually hook anything in. That's, I mean, my biggest frustration is you know, as everyone moves towards video, like there seems to be no one making the decision that, oh my God, people are using Canon is literally the only person that's like only company that's made a DSLR that actually shoots video, and obviously it's the C100, which is a whole different kind of thing, but it still takes frames, and it's, you know, and so I don't know. As we move towards video, I would love to see something that actually exists that way, but that's kind of completely off the subject now of the mirrorless system.
Exactly. Don't hate the player, hate the game. All right. Anyways. So mirrorless all the way. But let's go ahead and move on. We are closing off this week's show with, of course, our plugs and panelists. Daniel, where can people learn more about who you are and what you do?
They can find my website at danielschular.com. Daniel, S-H-U-L-A-R.
What? Not S-C-H-U-L-A-R?
No C's in there.
Daniel, could you do me a favor and just change your name? Change your last name. I mean, it would be a lot easier for you to do that than for me to have to
that's
go.
That's how everybody else
does
it. So.
I really don't want to have to change all the content I created.
You mean? Yeah, I was about to say, like how it is listed on the the title on our site right now.
Ignore that. No, that's all right, man. Thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Zach,
thank you.
Where can people find out more about you, buddy?
Well, of course, aroundthelens.com. I'm getting a film review, a film called Camera Store, being sent. They just sent it to me, and I'm going to have a film review up sometime later this week about it. It's a movie about with John Larroquette from Night Court, about the last days of a camera store in the mid '90s, and kind of the people that work there.
Wow.
It looks very dark. I think it's supposed to be a dark comedy. Aroundthelens.com. You can also go zdroberts.com and ZD Roberts basically across social media on Twitter, Instagram, and everywhere else.
As always, you can find me at djmphoto.com, but please go to aroundthelens.com. Please rate our show. Please give us some sort of feedback. Please let us know if you like the show or don't like it. I don't care. I just want to hear what people think. I want to make the show better. I was going to say something with regard to the movie. Who remembers the movie 1 Hour Photo with Robin Williams? Am I right?
Creepy as hell. Yep.
Best performance by Robin Williams, or at least one of his best serious performances, I have to say. And yes, super duper creepy. Man, that guy was good in that film. So yeah, I look forward to seeing this film and seeing what it's all about and reading your review. Also, I will have a review shortly, probably here in the next week or so, about the Horizon Rotation 180 camera backpack from Mindshift Gear. I've been so honored to have the opportunity to try that out, and I look forward to giving you all my thoughts about it. We're going to try our first video review for Around the Lens, so we'll see how that goes. Beyond that, though, please stay tuned. We've got a great, next week we'll have hopefully a great show talking all about what we've done this year, the best of the year, and then a whole great next season next year starting January 2nd. So please come back and keep on paying attention and listening to great visual journalism discussion. Daniel, I want to thank you so much for taking your time and being on the show tonight. I really appreciate that.
Thanks, it was great being here again.
Great, we're glad to have you back on. As always, love to have you on. For Zach Roberts, I am David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, episode 55, and we are out.